My guest is Molly Miller. She's the head women's basketball coach at Arizona State University. You can follow her on Instagram at coach_Molly Miller. Miller went 117-38 at Grand Canyon University. She's leading the Sun Devils women's basketball team to their best start in school history, 15-1, as we record this conversation. Molly, thanks for joining me on Sports Business Radio. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Fun time of year for sure.
I want to start with the beginning for you. I read that you were a ball girl at age 8. Is that what kind of got you into basketball? Where does your genesis for the love of basketball come from?
Yeah, well, my dad was a sports junkie. He loved all sports, but basketball had his heart. And so he bought season tickets to the Lady Bears when they were making their runs in the tournament, and Jackie Stiles was there. And so I kind of grew up with an affinity for the sport. And then when I was a ball girl and wiping up the sweat of role models that I admired, I guess that inspired me a little bit. And the rest is history. But I loved competition. I guess my dad was my coach, so he knew how to motivate me, which was, at that age, a little bit of reverse psychology. Molly, don't work on your left-handed layup. You'll get that when you're stronger and older. So you better bet I marched right out to our cul-de-sac and in the driveway was working on my left-handed layup. So pretty motivated by competition and just the spirit of sport and the love for the game that my dad had. It trickled down to me for sure.
One of the things that really struck me when I learned more about you is you just win at every level. As a player, you were 109-9 at Kickapoo High School. You've won 84% of all of your games as a coach. Where does this come from? I mean, it is really hard to win at all of these levels. You keep moving up levels, you keep winning. It's not easy, but you're making it look pretty easy.
Well, a lot of good people around you. That's the secret sauce is just, you don't have to lean into your own ego all the time I know I have probably the last say, but I don't have to be the biggest voice in the room. And I've always had that philosophy of put people around you that can augment your strengths and offset your weaknesses. And I've had really good players. I've had really good staff members. Every auxiliary part of the program I've given ownership to feel like they have a piece of this, and they do. So it's a team effort for sure. But I'm wired in this way that no one's going to be harder on themselves after a mistake or a loss or adversity than I am. And that's probably the competitive nature I do get from my parents. But how you do anything is how you do everything is kind of a life mantra for me. So even if it's something as simple as like a 10-minute speaking engagement, I'm going to put my all into it, and I'm going to make sure that, we set that up for success to where others are benefiting. So it's been in my nature, but it's also been pretty strategic with the people that I've placed around me. And they've just been absolute assets in my life that become family. And that's what's really cool about sport is the highs are high and the lows are low, but you get to experience it together with this built-in second family. And you really go through those emotions and that growth and how you face adversity and come out on the other side together. And I think that's been the special part and part of the success.
ASU was 10-22 before you came on board. Like I said at the start, you're 15-1 right now. How do you come in and change a culture where losing was prevalent, where people weren't buying in? And not only have you changed it, but you've changed it rather quickly.
Yeah, it starts with the very first thing you say on day one. And for me, that was, we're not going to take shortcuts. We're going to do this the right way. There's going to be a certain brand that we uphold this standard with. The expectation is going to be high. The standard is going to be even higher. And if you want to be a part of that, jump in with 2 feet. If not, this probably isn't the best place for you. So it started with the people that we surrounded the program with, and just the vision and the mission that had to come from the top, right? And it flowed, and my expectations. And so from the very jump, we said the brand's going to be relentless. You're gonna stick out like a sore thumb if you're not playing hard, if you're not diving on the floor for loose balls, if everything in every way didn't exude effort, then that wasn't gonna be how we operate. So the first thing was the brand, and the brand itself lends to unselfish basketball, to relentless effort on the defensive end, to selflessness and taking a great shot. If you pass up a good shot, those are the type of things from a basketball X's and O's standpoint that we're going to stand for. Now, from a culture standpoint outside, we want to be one of the top 25 teams in the classroom, in our GPA and academics. We want to be good stewards of the community and lean into, we have a foundation built to where we can give back, and we have that gratitude and humility about us. And then, you just have to kind of, when things go wrong, you have to nip them right away, and you have to do that with your best player and maybe your spot minute kid. So everything's very clear and concise in the communication. Our players know where we stand. They don't have to guess on what's wrong or right in the program. And there's a foundation of love and trust. But I've always believed, lead with a gentle heart in that, but maybe a firm hand in your accountability and your discipline. And when those two can kind of come together, then winning's the byproduct. And you've learned that at every level. So I'm very grateful for the people we brought in, these players. I don't think I've kind of witnessed a team get this much chemistry this fast and buy in to maybe something completely different. Because we were strangers about 7 months ago, and you put a bunch of strangers together and we sit down and we figure out what's the goals, what should this look like? Are you bought into maybe changing behavior than what you've done in the past? And they were all kind of I said jump, they said how high, coach. And so that's been a really true blessing to me, is to get these individuals together who believe.
When I had Emma Hayes on, U.S. Women's National Team coach, and Eric Spoelstra, coach of the Miami Heat, both of them said that one of the key determining factors for an athlete's success is resilience. What would you say with today's modern college women's basketball player? What are the traits necessary to be successful?
We got to develop that resilience in practice. You can't just snap your fingers and in a tough game think you're going to outplay someone in adversity, when stress, when the crowd, time and score come into play. So our practice should be harder than the games. Our practice is demanding. We hold each other accountable in practice. A little practice insight here. I've got a method, those sticky pads.
Yes.
Just like, these.
Yeah.
So stickies is something that we use to enforce culture. So there's really two buckets that I care about. It's body language and attitude, and then effort and energy. I always believe energy is our edge, but we have to do it with a positive attitude. So when we get on the court, and let's say someone turned it over and they slump their shoulders and they're jogging back, and, I just say, hey, that's a sticky, poor response. So I don't have to go back and forth with the player. So on this sticky, our manager will write poor response after a mistake. And this sticky will go up on the scoreboard where the managers are keeping score and running the clock. So it is a very matter-of-fact way to change behavior. It's non-judgmental. I don't have to sit there and go back and forth to why they thought they, didn't deserve a punishment, why I thought they did. And then at the end, you just say, hey, Lucas, who's our strength and conditioning coach, you've got the girls for their stickies. And it could be some form of like running, or they could do an extra rebounding drill or push-ups, whatever it is. There's always consequences to every action, good or bad. So the stickies are a reinforcement of culture. And again, it's just very matter of fact. It's quick. I also like it because I don't stop the drill. So it's like, oh, no, poor body language, get on the line and run. So we just move on. But if they generate a lot of stickies, they know the end of practice might be a little tougher than if they would have not accumulated all those stickies. So I don't know. One night at 2 a.m. last year, I thought of that, and it's been a really good reinforcement tool that I've used ever since.
I absolutely love that. I've never heard anyone talk about that before. So it sounds like a great method, which brings me to my next question. When we were growing up, when you were an athlete, mental health was not discussed as much as it is now. Now a lot of athletic departments have team psychologists, and it's much more of a resource than it was when we were coming up. How do you coach today's athlete knowing, hey, you're going to get a sticky or there's going to be some consequences, but I also have to be very aware of the mental health aspects?
I mean, we talk about it freely, mental health it's 50-50. Your physical health, we treat that, we condition that, you want to be in peak physical shape for your performance. Same thing with mental health. You want to be in peak mental health to be able to perform to the best of your abilities. So what's really nice at Arizona State is we have so many resources in place, from sports psychologists to counselors. I think that's education is power and knowledge is helpful when you can be able to design some of these tools to make you the best version of yourself. And that to me is both physical, spiritual, mental, emotional. All those things matter when you are living life as a human, but
Right.
especially when you add the pressure of sport. So it's really good to have those resources, talk about it, make sure it's a priority.
I am so curious to talk to you about building a program in today's NIL era. It's so different than it was 5 years ago. When you come to Arizona State and you're building a roster, and I assume you have a GM who helps you build the roster, but can you walk us through a little bit of, here's roster construction, here's how much attention we're paying to the portal, all of these things that go into bringing a team together that clicks, and your team is clicking on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We've talked about our staff is we're not going to compromise our culture, maybe for the best player available if they don't fit. And I believe that would be doing a disservice to the kid too, right? You
Mhm.
want it to be a fit on both sides. You want it to be a fit for the recruit, knowing that they're going to come into a culture that's going to push them. I really believe that when you're recruiting someone, you talk to their circle. I think that gives a lot of insight. So we're going to turn over every stone. We're going to do our diligence on our part to make it, just a great marriage of, basketball, student life. We're in Phoenix. It's a great quality of life. You've got Tempe, where Arizona State's located. So you've got kind of that quaint, homey college feel, but then you have scope of Phoenix around you if you want to spread your wings in a big city. So, you just got to make sure everything fits. And then the financial piece is going to be part of the conversation, probably one of the top questions that's asked. For me, I want to make sure that's not the number one motivator for a kid. I listened to Tom Brady speak about it. He's like, the adversity was so good for me when I was in college.
Right.
And because transferring, if it gets hard, transferring is sometimes the out. But that level of competition and adversity for him prepared what was going to be his career, his successful career, and in the next phase. So I do think getting the right players for the system is first and foremost a priority, and you want to recruit those kids. But it's going to be, the money's going to be part of the conversation, because let's be honest, in women's basketball, there's not as many opportunities to go play pro and get this hefty paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
They might earn the most they're going to earn in their lifetime through college sport. So it is part of the equation, and maybe even more so in men's sports, because you're not coming out of college and getting $1 million rookie contract. So this is important to have these discussions and have resources in place. But is it the only thing? No. So you're right now as coaches, the best ability is adaptability. We got to figure out a way to adapt to this landscape, mesh it all together, and fit is going to be really important at the end of the day for us.
Well, and it doesn't seem like there's as many transfer portal athletes in women's college basketball as there are in men's college basketball, or I'm watching football right now, and this is insane what's happening in the transfer portal. So is that an accurate statement, or do you have to worry about transfers and, you're bringing in 3 or 4 different players that are new through the portal every year?
Yeah, I mean, half your team, more than half your team, we've seen some of that on teams might, that roster flip is prevalent. So I think it is here in women's basketball, just as much. And, I think there was a trickle down effect. It kind of started in football and then got to men's basketball. And here we are in women's basketball talking about portal disruption of rosters, NIL, all the things that have made this landscape a little bit more challenging, but also an opportunity. I think you have to look at it like that. It's going to be, if you've got a great culture and the resources in place to be able to sustain the roster and the kids that are going to help you build a program, you want to be able to do that. But then I look at the portal as a great thing too. We are a destination place, so we've had success in the portal. It helped us build our roster this year to get to where we need to be to make kind of an instant turn and have some success here. So you gotta find the positives. You've got to embrace some things maybe that you don't love about the environment, but to move forward, I think that adaptability is the most important thing for coaches.
I'm born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, so I know Phoenix very well. I
It's
know
70
what a
and
great,
sunny right now. Like what?
yeah.
No
Me,
complaints here in
me,
January.
Meanwhile, I live in Portland, Oregon. It's pouring rain and cold. So I'm very envious of you in Phoenix. But I've always felt like Arizona State has all the resources and obviously the location to become a sports powerhouse. We're seeing Kenny Dillingham do this in football. I think you're doing this in basketball. Do you feel like when you took this job, did you say, this is an undervalued position and I think I can take it from 10 and 22 to being a national power?
Oh, well, 100%. I'm always one that's going to bet on myself anyway. But even talking to Graham, like the athletics, it's going to explode. It is exploding, as you mentioned, Kenny Dillingham, volleyball. I mean, just the past 2 years and their prominence that they're having. I love going to hockey games and seeing them dominate. Baseball, softball, men's basketball is having an awesome year. So there's this whole, and the coaches are great here. They've been so welcoming and they're brilliant. I love picking their brains, but it's going to be a great place to do both well. When I say that, become a student here is not a bad life. And
Right.
then be an athlete with our athletics department exploding. These things are happening before our eyes. I'm very grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona State has a great business school
Yes.
and one of the top business schools in the country. So if you're coming there to play sports, you're going to get a good education as well.
Yeah, the best of both worlds. And that's a easy sell for us. Come get a great education, the number one innovative school in the country. And then our sports teams are exploding. So you can have a good experience in the classroom, on the court for us.
Who's on your women's basketball team? Is it GM? Obviously, you have assistants. You just mentioned strength and conditioning coach. I'm interested in how big your staff is.
Yeah, we've got assistants that kind of dabble in a little bit of everything when it comes to recruiting and scouting and player development. We have a group of assistants. Stephanie Norman, I hired from Louisville, so she's kind of a known goat in the industry, if you will, and she's taken over some of those general management roles because she's a great recruiter, but now she's kind of blending the roster management and the rev share and NIL and all that entails. So she's been very helpful with that. We've got a few GAs, young kids who are up and coming that are just hungry, and that's fun for me is watching that growth and development and helping that course. We've got a team psychologist, a team doctor, a team nutritionist who's awesome. She's been great. Anna, shout out Anna. She's been phenomenal. Strength and conditioning coach, trainers. So, everything you need for me, it's really important to coach and mentor the holistic athlete. So Arizona State has really put those resources in place with our staff to be able to every point, whether it's, our academic team coordinator that needs to help them with scheduling or our nutritionist that needs to go meal shopping and prepping with them and showing that
Wow.
they've got everything at their fingertips. So no excuses not to be successful here. That's for sure.
Wow. That's next level. I'm interested when I talk to coaches. Do you talk to other coaches, maybe other sports, other industries, and shadow them or exchange ideas with them?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I will be a better coach yesterday than I am today. And I think that's because you always have to evolve and grow and share the answers. I mean, as coaches, only coaches know what coaches go through in every phase of the coaching cycle, whether it's recruiting, in season, off season. And so we've got really great coaches, like I mentioned here, that I lean into for tips and tricks, especially recruiting, right? Because they've been here and know all the secrets. And I'm like, what are you saying to recruits? And where are you taking them? What's your favorite restaurant to go to? What activities do you do near Tempe? And then, you've got your coaching tree. You've got people that you've met in the business. When you're on the sidelines watching basketball games and recruiting, you're always talking about what's new and things in the coaching world and ideas. And I think that's really important to grow the game is sharing the answers sometimes amongst each other.
Yeah, Emma Hayes told me that whenever she goes to a city, she sets up appointment with the coach in that city, whether it's her sport or not.
Yeah.
She just wants to meet, exchange ideas, maybe watch a practice. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. Practice watching is one of my favorites, and we'll have coaches come in here all the time. I've always had an open door policy, so high school coaches. We've
Mm.
even had, some JUCO Division 2. I've even had some Division 1 coaches come in during the off season and want to check us out, and I'm fine with that, because I think it's important that we learn from one another.
What about the Phoenix Mercury? They're one of the most successful WNBA teams ever. They were just in the finals. Are you ever able to tap into some of their knowledge, whether it's coaches or players?
Oh yeah, Nate's done a good job, and he's come to practices.
Okay.
And so it's good to kind of exchange information. I've been to many a Mercury game to see how he's kind of evolved that program and to watch them. It's been fun. It's nice being here in Tempe because when opposing WNBA teams come in town, usually they'll send a player development coach over, an assistant coach over, sometimes even the head coach. Usually they could be practicing here. So there's
Mm,
a lot of interaction between some of those WNBA coaches where you can kind of in passing pick their brain a little bit, or they come and watch a practice, which is great exposure for maybe our girls that have aspirations of
right.
playing at the next level. So that's why it's really nice to be here in Tempe too. It's kind of a straight shot and some connections with the WNBA having the Mercury in our backyard.
I want to ask you about the growth of women's sports overall. I've been doing this show 22 years. I've seen it grow a lot, especially I'd say in the last 5 years. From where you sit, how are we doing? Are we even scratching the surface of the potential yet? Are we on track? Where are we?
We've seen a little bit of explosion, but I think the best is yet to come. I think the brand is beautiful to watch in women's basketball, and then when you have some of these athletes that are being highlighted, and softball and volleyball selling out arenas, it's just fun. I think fans are appreciating the beauty of the game, and there is this teamwork involved and this emotional connection. I really, as a women's basketball coach and a program, want to let fans really in and connect. I think we miss that a little bit in this day and age, and maybe on the men's side, because they could be there for, 2 years and hop to another team and then go professional. And for us, it's about connection. And I think you can get to know these players. I think you can invest and almost feel ownership in the teams. So I think that connectivity and that accessibility, where we try to lean into for our program, is really beneficial. And, I think with TV negotiations, just getting more eyes on the sport is really, really important and this pivotal point. And so hopefully there's more and more TV games being picked up, and there's more people exposed to women's sport. And then that just creates more momentum for us.
Is the investment what it needs to be? Not necessarily from the university, but from outside donors. Are you seeing that pick up?
Yeah, what I love is like when someone comes and say, I want to invest in women's sports. There is a handful of those people that are really passionate about women's sports and investing in women's sports specifically. I do think, there's like a peak to, let's say, football. It sold out stadiums, every suite is filled. Like there's donors that are giving to football, which is great, but like that taps out as a certain point. You have no more
Mhm.
seats to add. There's no more suite box available. So then, there's an opportunity, I think, for women's sports to tap into that, to where, you get closer and closer to sold out stadiums or suites being a commodity, and the demand's high. So we're seeing that growth in women's sports.
Last question for you. And I asked Emma Hayes about this too. She's a mom. You're a mom. You have two kids, I
Yeah.
believe. How do you balance motherhood and being a world-class coach?
Oh, wow. That's like the $1 million question, right? And it's near impossible without some sort of guilt, right? You have mom guilt when you're so wrapped up in your job and you're spending time with, so many people outside your immediate family. And then you've got coach's guilt, when you're at home and you're trying to spend time with your kids, but oh, I got to make a recruiting call, or I need to probably look at one more game film for the scout tomorrow. So you can never, I think, hang on that too much. What's beautiful about this position is I get to blend the two.
Hmm.
So when Crosby and Cy, my two kids, come over to the facility and they're hanging around pre-practice with our girls and they're putting them on their shoulders and they're playing tag with them. What other kid gets to do that? So
Yeah.
there's experiences. And then when I have my basketball kids come over to the house and spend time with my family and just, you know, eat snacks and watch the Super Bowl or whatever it may be, then again, you're able to blend the two. So you might feel a little neglectful because you can't clone yourself and be two places at once and be two people at once. But then when you see the opportunity, I think, to blend your job with your family and your second family, that's something that's rare and unique. And so you hang on to those moments. And that's the normal for my kids. They don't know any other way than, yeah, mom might be gone on a recruiting trip, but the next day they're flying on a plane with the team to go to a basketball game. That's pretty cool.
Your kids must think mom's a rock star.
No, they think that my players are rock stars. They just think I'm chopped liver sometimes. They're really the boss of all this.
Oh my gosh. That's kids with parents in general, though, right? Like they're
Yeah,
always like, ah, yeah. Like I heard Jason Bateman on an interview with David Letterman recently, and he was talking about how his daughters aren't really that impressed with what he
right.
does.
Yeah.
And he's like one of the great actors and podcasters of the world. And no big deal to the kids.
No, they talked more about when we had that one loss to me about basketball and my coaching than they did in the 15 prior. Like, mom, you need to rebound more. Mom, you should work on some drills to rebound. Like, thanks. Thanks, guys.
So they had a whole critique.
They did. They did.
The question is, as a parent, are you doing the sticky exercise with them? If they have bad body language, are you like, hey, this goes on the board, dad's going to deal with this?
It's so funny because Derek, my husband, he's like, I'm gonna try the sticky method today. So I think Cy like threw down his Legos and broke them. And Derek's like, I'm putting a sticky on the fridge. And we're so I think it worked for one day and then they were stickied out.
Well, Molly, continued success to you. I'm just going to say this now to our listeners. I am buying all of the Molly Miller stock. I think your star is going to deep outer space, and you're doing a great job. You can follow Molly on Instagram at coach_Molly Miller. Molly, thanks for joining me on Sports Business Radio.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.